What is going on, y'all? Today we are doing a very exciting comparison between two of the shoes that I have been really enjoying with daily training, and those are the Nike Vomero 18s and the tried and true ASICS Novablast 5s. And the reason I'm comparing these two is because recently, maybe due to some political things and tariffs, the ASICS Novablast 5s, at least in the United States or in California where I live, have gone up to $150 MSRP, whereas the Nike Vomero 18, actually, let me go double check that these are also $150. So I stand corrected. The Vomero 18s also increased in price to $155, at least on Nike's website where I live, which is in California in the United States. So since these two shoes are now more similarly priced, $155 and $150, and both of them are some of my favorite daily trainers, let's go ahead and compare and see which one you guys should buy based on my experience. So starting out with the outsoles, as always, as you can see on my left, we have the Nike Vomero 18s waffle-like pattern that Nike puts on most of their running shoes. And on the right-hand side, we have the Novablast 5s, pretty traditional ASICS looking outsole, or at least it looks very reminiscent of past Novablast models. And let's start off with the Vomero 18's traction pattern. So honestly, Nike's waffle pattern, I don't really run in a lot of crazy weather conditions as I do live in California. So if anything, I'm running a little bit on sandy roads and maybe a little bit of rain here and there, but the Nike traction pattern held up very well when it comes to the traction performance of the shoe. I never felt like I was gonna slip or fall in the waffle pattern outsole. And as for durability, I have around 50 miles in the Vomero 18s now, or maybe a little bit more. And the waffle pattern is holding up decently well. There are a couple knobs on the outsole that have worn down, but that's to be expected with around 50 plus miles in the shoe. Now moving on to the Novablast 5's outsole. This is where it gets a little bit tricky because I think that the outsole on the Novablast 5 performs decently well, but then again, I do run in very ideal weather conditions on the road. But when there was a little bit of rain or it was a little bit wet, I didn't feel as confident in the traction performance of this outsole than I did in the Vomero 18, if I'm just being honest. And as for durability on the Novablast 5's outsole, I feel that even though I do have a different mileage in this shoe, I have around 100 miles in the Novablast 5, I think that the outsole is starting to show a lot of wear. Given I am a heavier runner at 205 pounds, I think that that's pretty normal, but at 100 miles, I did not expect to see this much wear on the outsole. So I don't know if you guys will be able to see it, but in the forefoot, in the middle, as well as the lateral and medial side of the forefoot, the rubber is wearing out quite thin. I would say if I were to estimate, I maybe have another 75 to 100 miles left in this shoe. And that's also assuming that the cushion doesn't bottom out beforehand, which we'll get into in the cushioning department. So the cushion's durability of the Novablast 5 outsole. So if I had to pick between these two traction outsoles, whether that's durability or performance in sticking to the ground, I would have to give the slight edge to the Vomero 18s. I don't think that the outsole is that much better than the Novablast 5s, but I do think that it's going to be a little bit more durable and it's going to be a little bit more versatile in different weather conditions as well as terrain when it comes to traction performance. But I wouldn't say it's anything great. If anything, this is average, and then maybe the outsole on the Novablast 5 is below average. Now moving on to the cushion of both of these shoes, which is my favorite part of every running shoe, and I think that it is a highlight in both of these shoes. We're gonna switch things up and start with the Novablast 5s. In the Novablast 5, we have an FF Blast Max cushion setup, so it's a little bit quote-unquote updated from last year's Novablast 4, and overall, I think that it performed very well. At first, it was a little bit too squishy and a little bit gel-like, and I felt a little bit lethargic in my runs, but once I started to break in the foam, or maybe compress the foam after 20 to 30 miles, that feeling did change, and I do feel really light in the Novablast 5s. I feel like it's really easy to hit a lot of different paces in the Novablast 5 while still retaining that impact protection and still retaining that lightweight feel. Now, it's not gonna be the bounciest foam, so when you are running faster, you're not gonna feel that push or that response from the shoe. If anything, you're just gonna get a little bit of a responsive feeling from feeling the ground and feeling a little bit more firm in the setup, especially in the forefoot in the shoe, but it still is a very comfortable setup to do recovery runs in, to push the pace in, and I just overall think it's a very versatile cushion setup that is comfortable yet still lightweight. And The thing I like about the Novablast 5 is that it doesn't feel like you're wearing too much shoe. So if you look on paper, the stack height of the Novablast 5 could scare you, but once you put the shoe on, it doesn't feel that high off the ground, as well as once you really break in the cushion setup, it feels pretty nimble and it feels pretty versatile. You should be able to run a wide range of different paces in the shoe, which is honestly one of the reasons why I love this setup. Quickly touching on durability of this cushion setup though, me being a little bit of a heavier runner, and guys, when I say I'm a little bit of a heavier runner, 200 pounds or 205 pounds, I understand is not super heavy, but also in regards to, I guess, the long distance running community, as well as maybe cross country kids and whatnot, like I definitely am a little bit on the heavier side. So when I say heavier, don't mean to offend anyone or anything. Different runners have different size bodies and stuff, and I just feel like I'm on the heavier side of runners. So for the cushion setup, as when it comes to a durability standpoint though, I do feel like I've already kind of made the foam bottom out a little bit. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that if anything, it provides a little bit of stability, and also it provides some ground feel, and also it just provides a little bit more versatility. But I will say that over time, I think that the impact protection level is definitely going to go down in the Novablast 5. So that's something to keep in mind when purchasing this shoe. Maybe the durability in this shoe isn't that great when it comes to an outsole and cushion point of view. Now, when we talk about the Vomero 18, I think that this is one of the most comfortable shoes on the market, especially for the price point. I would say that this kind of sits on the max cushion / premium daily trainer type of vibe. It does have an absurdly high stack height with Zoom X as well as React X, over 40 millimeters of stack in the heel. And I think that the nice part of this shoe is that you get max cushion in the midfoot and the heel, but you do get a nice little bit of response and ground feel in the forefoot due to that 10 millimeter heel to toe drop. So I also thought that this setup was very versatile. Even though it is a bigger shoe, I didn't mind pushing the pace in the shoe, as well as I didn't mind taking it on longer runs. It didn't feel too heavy or sluggish on my foot, which I really liked. And I think that I really felt the Zoom X in the forefoot as well as the heel, and it felt a little bit responsive if I wanted to pick up the pace. So this is a overall bigger shoe than the Novablast 5, but I still think that it's pretty versatile. If anything, I don't feel like I can run as fast in the Vomero 18 than the Novablast 5, but I do feel like I can go on longer runs in the Vomero 18. So I think overall, it really depends on what you're looking for. I think that you can't go wrong with either setup in the shoe, but if you want something that's a little bit more exciting, a little bit more impact protection, as well as you maybe want to do longer runs, I would recommend the Vomero 18 setup a little bit more than the Novablast 5, as the Novablast 5 feels more like a traditional EVA setup. And as for the durability of the cushion setup, I also think that the Vomero 18 is just going to last a little bit longer than the Novablast 5s. Now, moving on to the upper as well as the fit. So let's talk about the materials on both of these shoes. Honestly, they are pretty cut and dry. They are pretty basic, the materials. Both of them have a mesh, and I didn't really have any problems with the materials on either of these shoes. Now, if I were to say which one is a little bit thinner and which one provides a little bit more airflow, I would kind of say the Novablast 5, but I would say that they're pretty equal. I don't really have any complaints or any concerns when it comes to the uppers. No blisters, no hot spots, so that's always a good sign. But when it comes to fit and support, I think that both of these shoes are also very good at both of those aspects. The Novablast 5, in my opinion, fits my foot really, really well. I have a slightly wider than average foot, and I always felt that the midfoot, forefoot, and the heel lockdown was really, really good. Initially, I did have to break in the upper a little bit. I did have a little bit of heel slippage, I think, in one of my shoes, but over the time where I started to break in the upper as well as just run in the shoe more, it's starting to fit like a glove, and I absolutely love it. So fit as well as support and just the materials in general on the Novablast 5 are chef's kiss. With the Vomero 18, I also feel that it fits my foot very well. There was no break-in time for the Vomero 18, but I did feel like the forefoot had a little bit more space, or there was a little bit more volume in the forefoot. It was nothing crazy, but it wasn't like the Pegasus 41s for me personally, where I felt like that shoe fit my foot perfectly. But heel lockdown as well as just midfoot lockdown and forefoot lockdown were excellent in the shoe. I never felt not supported in the shoe, and I think that both of these uppers, you really can't go wrong. They don't feel extra premium, but they also don't feel super cheap in both of these uppers. So when it comes to uppers, I think I'm gonna have to give them a tie. So overall, The Vomero 18 versus the Novablast 5, I honestly don't think you can go wrong with either of these shoes. I think that they provide really good value, and I think they are very versatile shoes that could be added to your rotation. I think they can also act as a replacement for possibly two shoes. So you can buy one of these versus two other pairs to do different scenarios in or different paces in. I really personally really like both of these shoes. For me personally, I choose the Vomero 18 for longer runs. And when it comes to kind of easier runs or maybe anything under a half marathon, I do prefer the Novablast 5s, as maybe the feel on foot is a little bit lighter and more nimble. But when I want to be take it a little bit easier, or I want to be easier on my joints and feel really comfy, I do like the Vomero 18s, and I still feel like there is a touch of fun in them because it does still feel low to the ground in the forefoot, and I still feel like I can push off. So at the end of the day, it's up to you guys what you guys decide. Maybe you like the design better or the colorways better on one shoe or the other, but let me know in the comment section down below which shoe you've been enjoying or which shoe you're eyeing, as well as maybe what shoes to compare next. And that's gonna wrap up the comparison video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.